Okay, it's gear time. A couple of weeks ago I bought this, which is a Simmons Trixer sound module from the late 80s, 1987 or something like that. This was one of the first modules that could trigger samples from regular microphones. So the idea was that you had a drum set on stage, for example, with just ordinary microphones. And then you put the microphones into the Simmons Trixer, and then you could blend the acoustic sound coming from the microphones with the samples triggered from the Simmons Trixer module. And it was quite a cool idea. This module was cheap and it has some serious limitations, but the idea is kind of cool, and it has some quite cool sounds. It sounds extremely 80s. Which is what you would expect, but it's cool. So you have 6 channels. You have a bass drum, a snare drum, and 4 toms. The internal sound library is small. It's just 4 kits. You can add a 5th with a memory cartridge, which I don't have. So it's Rock 1, Rock 2, Jazz, and Electronic. So let's listen to them. This is Rock 1, big drums. Rock 2, also big drums. Jazz. And electronic, which is sampled directly from the STS5 brain. Okay, so let's... this is dry without any reverb. Here I can tune the individual drums. So let's tune everything down. Cool. Let's just listen to the kick and snare. So I can bring those up again. Cool. Okay, so on each channel you have a volume slider, standard. You have a gain for the microphone input. You have the tuning of the digital samples. You have an FX send for the internal reverb. And you have the mix knob, or the blend knob, or something like that, which is the mix of the acoustic versus the digital samples. Right now it's only the samples, so it doesn't really do anything. Here we have the control panel where I can choose the kits, which reverb I use, and I can choose learn, which is interesting. The idea is you press learn, and then you just hit your acoustic drum with a trigger microphone on it, and the Simmons Trixer learns your playing style and adjusts the velocity levels according to your playing, which is a really cool function, and I haven't tested it, but you know, it's a cool idea. Then we have MIDI, which is, I guess, pretty basic on this module because it's old, 1987, so the MIDI is probably very basic, but it works. I can trigger it via MIDI from Logic, so it serves a purpose. Yeah. Okay, we also have a meter button just to check the levels, the output levels of everything. The Simmons Trixer is actually velocity sensitive over MIDI and over everything else, I presume. So let's check that out. So in conclusion, this is a cool little piece of gear. It sounds very 80s, but it's very limited. The most severe limitation is that it doesn't have separate outputs for the channels. It's just a stereo output. You have no control over the panning of the toms, for example, even though they are sort of placed in the stereo image quite reasonably, but you have no control over it. So that's a very serious drawback. Perhaps you can sort of modify it somehow, I don't know. You can trigger it via pads or via MIDI, which is cool. So the next thing I think is to try it out with pads, because I have a friend who has a lot of Simmons pads. So we're going to try it out and trigger it with those and see, you know, how 80s, you know, we can get.